was playing this monologue, in the beginning of the scene, I probably would explore using an emotion like disbelief, and my objective being to make sense. Almost like, how can you be so blind? Like, really? Do you really believe that? And we see you kind of trying to put A plus B equals C together as you're sort of talking to me. You're trying to understand and make sense of me. You're trying to make sense of why am I paying him? You're trying to make sense of what's the point of this conversation why am I even here? Does that make sense, kind of?
Yeah.
So I think, a couple of things you can pull from today. Number one, when you're dealing with a monologue, it's going to be very tempting to slip into narrating. That's number one. And then number two, I would say, remembering that these lines themselves are already heavy and dark and negative. Almost every line you say is negative, which is exactly why you cannot pick an emotion like frustration, because it will bring you down into the depths of darkness, and there's going to be no mystique to you. Now, you could, for example, let's say you picked the objective to make sense, and you picked an emotion like resentment. Let's just say, for example, you picked that. Remember, there are three things that you use as an actor as your tools. Okay? There's your objective, there's your emotion, but that's not everything. There's the who am I. And the who am I is an important part of this, because it could cover the disbelief flavor. To balance it out is what I'm saying. In other words, if I'm playing, look at True Detective, for example. Okay? Like, if you look at Matthew McConaughey's role. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yes, because you get a scene from it. So, that guy has been through, the mill. He has been worn down by the world, right? In as that character. So, Cole is his name, right?
Yeah.
Cole's been through it. So it could totally be okay for him, when he's in the car and they're driving and he's sort of thinking and processing, but he's almost being poetic as he's thinking about his philosophies. If he had an objective to make sense, he could have an emotion like resentment, as long as who he is, meaning under that umbrella of who am I, you bring in that side of you to balance out the resentment, so that you have almost a disbelief-filled personality, like how ridiculous this world is. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't want you to think you can't use an emotion like resentment, because it may very well work, as long as you have something to balance it out. It may very well be, if you played that character from True Detective, if he had an emotion like disbelief, and he had an objective to make sense, he may come off as too innocent, and too, not damaged. Mm-hmm. So I would have to make sure that I brought in the damaged, hatred, anger-filled resentment into the who am I in my personality. That I walk around with 500 pounds on my back because I hate the world right now. I can play a character like that who's filled with disbelief and thinking to make sense. And I could also play a character like that has the emotion of resentment and my objective to make sense. And who I am is somebody filled with disbelief at this world. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So think about it almost like you're trying to create layers within a layer cake. Mm-hmm. And they're all different colors. And the more colors you have, the better. So as long as those colors are covered under one of those three things, you're good. But if I pick something like resentment, and to not lose it, and my personality is filled with hatred, you're gonna there's no mystique, and your audience is not gonna want to spend time with you. There's something amusing and fun about a dark character who's trying to make sense of the world in a state of disbelief. There's something, in a sense, you need to find the charm of him.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to be a charmer, actually. I mean, you know, if he's a mob boss, he would be. Because if he wasn't, I mean, it's hard to believe that the Godfather is not charming, because he never would have worked his way up. Or if you look at any, like, you know, John Gotti, like, you know who he was, or is? I don't know if he's alive anymore. I think he died, actually. He did. He was a real mob boss. But if you look him up, you know, he was a charmer.
Mm-hmm.
So find the sort of the charm of him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You sure?